Ja sam Gergej Pastor Tiči, pozdravljam vas u ime EUS-a, to je Evanđeoskog udruženja studenta. Mi smo jedna studentska organizacija koja želi da širi tradicionalne hrišćanske vrednosti, ali da ih širi na akademiji. I želimo da pokažemo da vera i nauka mogu da idu zajedno. I jedan od načina na koji to radimo jeste da dovedemo odlične strane predavače, kao što je i naš doktor Alexander Fink, koji je tu danas sa nama. I ne bih želeo mnogo da odugovlačim, ali bi ga najavio i hajde da ga pozdravimo sa jednim aplauzom. Alexander, you can start.
So, thank you very much for the nice welcome. I have decided I will not use the microphone, but I will hand over the microphone to my translator, and maybe you can encourage him by a little clap already. And at the moment, we are still used to parking our cars like this.
I trenutno navikli smo da parkiramo kola ovako.
But I tell you that the Germans are really working very hard to develop autonomous driving.
Ali kažem da Nemci naporno rade da razviju autonomnu vožnju.
Artificial intelligence.
Veštačka inteligencija.
According to the German way.
Je nemački način.
And then the parking slots will look much more ordered.
I onda će parking izgledati mnogo strukturalnije.
Like this.
Ovako.
Autonomous driving.
Autonomne vožnje.
Finding your parking slot in the right place.
Nađete pravo mesto na parkingu.
Yeah, welcome, thank you for your interest in this lecture.
Dobrodošli i hvala vam za vaše interesovanje za ovo predavanje.
On neuroscience, artificial intelligence and worldview.
Za neuronauku, veštačku inteligenciju i pogled na svet.
This is actually what my institute in Germany does.
Ovo je ono što moj institut u Nemačkoj radi.
We try to understand current developments in science and in the sciences actually.
Pokušamo da razumemo trenutne napredovanje u naukama.
And look at different worldview interpretations.
I da pogledamo interpretacije različitih pogleda na svet.
And we ourselves are Christians.
I mi smo hrišćani.
And our vision is to show that Christian faith is rational.
I naša vizija je da pokažemo da je hrišćanska vera racionalna.
And there are good reasons to be Christian.
Da postoje dobri razlozi da budemo hrišćani.
So this is about the program for today.
Tako da je ovo večerašnji program.
And it's very full, so I will start.
Evo me pretrpan pa ću početi.
When you just think about, look from the outside on planet Earth.
Kada s polja pogledate na planetu Zemlju,
what do you think has had the most remarkable impact on our planet in the last millennia?
Šta mislite šta je imalo najveći utjecaj na našu planetu u posljednjem milenijumu?
Was it earthquakes?
Zemljotresi?
I think when you think of it, you will come up with this solution.
Ja mislim da kada malo razmislite doći ćete do ovog rješenja.
It has to do with this object.
Ima sa ovim objektom.
It is composed of amazing 80% water.
Čini ga 80% vode.
10% fat.
10% masnoće.
8% proteins.
8% proteina.
And 2% other chemicals.
I 2% drugih hemikalija.
For the male human beings.
Za muške ljude.
It is about 1.4 kilogram.
Ima oko 1,4 kila.
For a female, only 1.3 kilogram.
Za žene samo 1,3 kile.
Some male will say, I have always known that.
Neki muškarci će reći, od uvijek sam to znao.
But studies about intelligence have shown
ali istraživanje u inteligenciji su pokazale
that the average intelligence between male and female is about the same.
Da je prosječna inteligencija muškog i ženskog pola je otprilike ista.
So you can also conclude
tako da možete zaključiti
that women can deal more effectively with what they have.
Da žene mogu bolje da se snađu s onim što imaju.
So I leave the interpretation up to you.
Tako da ću vama ostaviti tumačenje.
Of course it's not just the material, which is just water and fat and proteins.
Tako, ovdje se ne radi samo o materijalima koje većinom voda, proteini i masnoća.
The amazing thing about the brain is the neurons.
Nevjerojatna stvar kod mozga su neuroni.
There are about 100 billion neurons in our brain.
Ima oko 100 milijardi neurona u našem mozgu.
This is about the same number as we have stars in our Milky Way, in our galaxy.
To je otprilike isti broj zvezda u Mlečnom putu.
Which is about 200 to 400 billion stars. We are not completely sure about that.
Što je između 200 i 400 milijardi, nismo potpuno sigurni.
But that's quite a lot in this little volume here.
Ali to je veoma mnogo za ovu malu zapreminu.
And the neurons are there right from the birth.
A neuroni su tu odmah po rođenju.
Even though some neurons are produced afresh later.
Iako se neki neuroni kasnije razvijaju.
So the neurons themselves are not enough.
Tako da neuroni sami nisu dovoljni.
They need to be connected with each other.
Moraju biti povezani međusobno.
And this is what makes the brain so complex and so amazing.
I ovo ono što čini mozak tako kompleksnim i nevjerovatnim.
There are about 10,000 billion connections between these 100 billion neurons.
Postoji između 10.000 milijardi veza između tih 100 milijardi neurona.
If we took all of these connections out of my brain and then align them along a very long line.
Kada bismo uzeli te veze između neurona i razložili ih u jednu liniju,
Do you think we would arrive at Moscow?
što mislite, da li bismo stigli do Moskve?
Or do you think we would arrive at Beijing
Ili na Beijing?
or Washington
Ili Washington?
or at the moon?
Ili do Meseca?
We would come to the moon and back, 750,000 kilometers.
Would come?
To the moon and back.
Aha, i išli smo i do Meseca i nazad 750.000 kilometara.
750,000 kilometers of wiring and connections in the brain.
Ima 750.000 kilometara veza u mozgu.
And these connections in the brain are not static.
I one nisu statične.
If you play the violin,
Ako svirate violinu,
then the motorics of your fingers
onda motorne funkcije vaših prstiju
and your sensitivity to listen to acoustic waves
i vaša osjećajnost da slušate akustične talase
is trained repeatedly.
se konstantno trenira.
And so those regions in the brain that deal with that
I tako da ti regioni mozga koji se time bave
will be stronger connected.
će biti jače povezani.
And if you don't play the violin
A ako ne svirate violinu
and don't use certain areas
i
of your brain,
ne koristite određene delove mozga,
then these connections will be destructed or not built up so much.
i onda ove veze neće biti tako razvijene.
So the brain of every person on this planet is different.
Tako da je mozak svake osobe na planeti različit.
We are unique.
Jedinstveni smo.
Even twins don't ever have the same brain.
Čak i blizanci nemaju isti mozak.
One expert whom we interviewed for our documentary movie More Than My Brain,
Jedan ekspert koga smo intervjusali za dokumentarac,
he said that actually the brain is incarnated experience and incarnated thinking.
je rekao da je mozak inkarnisano iskustvo i inkarnisano mišljenje.
Our thoughts leave traces in our brain.
Naše misli ostavljaju tragove u našem mozgu.
And our brain is always under construction.
I naš mozak se uvijek gradi.
So it's encouragement, use your brain and think.
Tako da za ohrabrenje koristite vaš mozak i mislite.
And while the brain only has about 2% of the body weight,
I tako da iako mozak ima 2% telesne mase,
it uses about 20% of the energy.
koristi otprilike 20% energije.
And if it was possible to use that energy,
I kad bismo mogli da koristimo tu energiju,
we could even use a light bulb with 20 watt and bring it to light.
mogli bismo da uključimo sjelicu od 20 W.
Illuminate the light bulb. Illuminate the light bulb. Yeah.
Da,
Okay.
osvetimo
Yeah.
sjelicu.
Okay. So, and the interesting thing about the brain, when you compare the brain to the computer, is the working frequency.
I zanimljiva stvar kod mozga kada ga uporedite sa kompjuterom je radna frekvencija.
My laptop has a few gigahertz.
Moj laptop ima nekoliko gigaherca.
Other much larger computers have terahertz.
Drugi veći kompjuteri imaju teraherc.
In fact, 1,000 more than my laptop.
1000 puta više od mog laptopa.
But the brain only works in the kilohertz.
Ali mozak radi samo na kilohercima.
But the big difference is
Ali velika razlika je
that one neuron can build up to 10,000 connections.
da jedan neuron može da razvije do 10.000 konekcija.
So the brain works amazingly parallel,
Tako da mozak radi nevjerovatno paralelno,
while the computer works very linear.
dok kompjuter radi linearno.
So a computer is not a good image of the brain.
Tako da kompjuter nije dobra slika mozga.
And we are not sure whether we can ever really imitate the brain.
I nismo sigurni da li ćemo ikada moći da imitiramo mozak.
I think I will skip this section about the physiology of the brain,
Mislim da ću preskočiti ovaj deo o fiziologiji mozga,
even though it's very interesting.
iako je zanimljiva.
If you have a question, you can ask me afterwards.
Ako imate pitanje, možete me kasnije pitati.
How do we know about how the brain works?
Kako znamo kako mozak funkcioniše?
Well, 100 years ago and thousands of years ago, we only knew from lesions and from pathology.
Hiljadama godina kasnije znali smo samo iz patologije
Injuries.
i povreda.
So even the ancient Egyptians already
Tako da su već i stari Egipćani
cut open skulls of dead people
otvarali lobanje mrtvih ljudi
and probably even of people who were still alive
i verovatno oni koji su i dalje bili živi.
and then not any longer.
I onda više nisu bili živi.
But they wanted to find out what is going on inside.
Ali htjeli su da shvate šta se dešava unutra.
And we can be very grateful that in the 20s of the last century,
Možemo biti zahvalni da je u 20. prošlog veka
the EEG was invented.
EEG je razvijen.
And that opened up a whole new space for research.
I to je otvorio ceo jedan novi prostor za istraživanje.
We could measure electricity in the brain without cutting the brain open.
Mogli smo da merimo elektricitet u mozgu, a da ne otvaramo mozak.
And even better was the magnetic resonance tomography
I još bolje kada je razvijena magnetna rezonansa tomografije
in the 70s,
70-ih,
which allowed us to even have more detailed pictures of the space with better spatial resolution.
koje nam omogućili da imamo bolje slike sa većom rezolucijom.
And this led to a whole variety of approaches and methods.
Što je razvilo na različite metode i načine pristupa.
So you can produce funny pictures like this.
Tako da možete napraviti smešne slike poput ove.
This is a monkey skull,
Ovo je skelet majmuna.
and then you measure the brain activity, the electrical or the magnetic activity.
I onda merite ili električnu ili magnetnu funkciju mozga.
In this case, it's an fMRI,
U ovom slučaju to je fMRI.
and you average the pictures.
I onda uradite prosjek nad slikama.
You get rid of all the noise.
Otarasiti se šuma.
While noise is actually the activity of the whole brain, because the whole brain is always active.
Šum je zapravo aktivnost celog mozga jer je mozak stalno aktivan.
And you find out that compared to a certain other state of the brain, this region is more active in the brain.
I saznajete da u poređenju sa ostalim delovima mozga ovaj je mnogo aktivniji od ostalih.
And this is the so-called occipital lobe of the brain.
I ovo je takozvani
Occipital lobe, in the back.
temeni deo mozga.
And this is connected usually with visual sight.
I ovo je obično povezano sa vidom.
So this monkey seems to concentrate on something that he can see.
Tako da s ovima on fokusira na nešto što može da vidi.
So we can always measure activity and energy usage in the brain.
Tako da uvijek možemo da merimo aktivnosti i potrošnju energije u mozgu.
We cannot measure thoughts,
Ne možemo da merimo misli.
only activity, physical quantities.
Samo fizičke kvantitete i takve aktivnosti.
And we can also play funny games.
A možemo da igramo i smešne igre.
With my family, I went to a museum
Ušao sam u muzej sa svojom porodicom.
and we played might ball.
Igrali smo umnu loptu.
We set up an EEG crown,
Stavili smo EEG krunu.
and the person who exhibits stronger activity in their brain
I osoba koja ima jaču aktivnost u mozgu
would move an iron sphere towards the other person.
ta osoba bi pomerala gvozdenu sferu ka drugoj osobi.
And as soon as the sphere would hit the hole at the other person, like when playing golf,
I kada bi onda ta sfera upala u loptu druge osobe kao u golfu,
this person would have won.
ova bi osoba pobedila.
So I played against my wife.
Tako da sam igrao protiv svoje žene.
And guess who won?
Pokažite ko je pobedio.
It was me.
Ja.
So my wife asked me, how did you do that? What did you think about?
Tako da me žena pitala kako si to uradio, o čemu si mislio.
And I said, I thought about you.
Ja sam rekao, mislio sam o tebi.
And so my wife said, oh, let's have a revenge.
I onda je moja žena rekla, ajde da ti se osvetim.
So we had a revenge.
Tako da smo igrali ponovo.
And guess who won?
I pogodite ko je pobedio.
My wife won.
Moja žena je pobedila.
And so I asked her, so what did you think about?
Tako da sam ja pitao, o čemu si mislila.
And she said,
I ona je rekla,
I thought about how we could decorate our house.
o tome kako da ukrasimo našu kuću.
I leave the interpretation again up to you.
Interpretaciju ponovo ostavljam vama.
Okay, so when we look at the brain, we see that the brain is connected to our personality.
Tako da ako pogledamo na mozak, vidimo da je mozak povezan sa našom ličnošću.
For example, to physical abilities.
Na primjer, fizičkim sposobnostima.
Parkinson patients, for example, are not able to control the movement of their arms anymore.
Pacijenti Parkinsonove bolesti više nemaju sposobnost da kontrolišu pomeranje svoje ruke.
When they try to fill a glass with water,
Kada žele da napune čašu vode,
they are shaking.
tresu im se ruke.
But as neuroscientists have found out,
Ali kako su neuronaučnici pronašli,
it is possible to use a pacemaker and implant it in a certain region of the brain,
saznali su da može da se ugradi pacemaker u određenom dijelu mozga
and thereby stimulate a certain region of the brain.
i da se time stimuliše određena strana mozga.
And then it's possible again for the patient to control their movement.
I onda pacijent opet može da kontroliše svoje pokrete.
When you switch off the pacemaker,
Kada isključite pacemaker,
and the battery is actually placed on the chest muscle,
a baterije se zapravo stavljaju tu kod grudi,
then suddenly the patient starts to shake again.
onda pacijent ponovo počinje da mu drhte ruke.
Unfortunately, this therapy only lasts for some time,
I nažalost ova terapija funkcioniše samo neko vreme,
because Parkinson proceeds and gets worse again.
jer Parkinsonova napreduje i postaje gora.
And then there are other symptoms.
A onda su tu i simptomi,
Like you might have heard of phantom pain,
kao fantomska bol,
that you feel still pain of limbs that are not there
da
anymore.
osjećate bol u udovima koji više nisu tu,
Or some people say, my arm does not belong to me and they want to amputate their arm.
ili kažu moja ruka ne pripada meni i želi da je amputiraju.
Very strange things.
Veoma čudne stvari.
But then there is this story about Phineas Gage. Maybe you've heard about him
Onda
already.
postoji priča o Phineas Gageu za koju ste možda čuli.
He was a railway worker
Bio je radnik na pruzi
in the United States
u Americi
and he had to deal with explosives.
i baratao je eksplozivima.
And once he did not pay attention.
Jednom nije obraćao pažnju,
And so suddenly the explosion went off
onda se desila eksplozija
and this iron rod shot through his head.
i onda ova metalna šipka se zabila u njegovu glavu.
It was reconstructed, it must have been like this.
Kad su je rekonstruisali, verovatno izgledalo ovako.
So everyone thought this guy is dead.
Svi su mislili ovaj lik je mrtav,
But amazingly he survived.
ali nevjerovatno je preživeo.
He lost eyesight on one side,
Izgubio je vid s jedne strane,
but everything else seemed to be okay.
ali sve ostalo je izgledalo normalno.
Apart from that, his character afterwards seemed to have changed.
Osim što se posle toga njegov karakter promenio.
So one doctor called Harlow reports that he became impulsive and unreliable.
Jedan doktor po imenu Harlow je rekao da je postao impulsivan i nije se moglo njega osloniti.
While he was known to be very reliable before.
Dok se pre toga moglo osloniti na njega.
But this doctor also had certain beliefs.
Ali taj doktor ima određena verovanja.
And so other people had different opinions.
A tako da su drugi ljudi imali drugačije verovanja.
But it might be that some changes in the brain can affect even our character.
Ali može se desiti da možda u delovima našeg mozga mogu da određuju naš karakter.
Which is called the frontal lobe syndrome, for example.
Koji se zove sindrom frontalne lobanje.
And he became a post-coach driver in Chile afterwards, so he left his home country.
On je napustio svoju domovinu da postane
Coach driver, post-coach, like riding horses and,
i postaje kao vozio je kočije sa konjima.
for 10 years.
I to radi 10 godina.
I wonder how that works if he was very unreliable.
Pitam se kako je to radio ako se nije mogao osloniti na njega.
So some people say that after some time he became reliable again.
Neki ljudi kažu da je posle nekog vremena ponovo postao pouzdan.
So unfortunately we can't ask him anymore.
Nažalost ne možemo ga pitati.
Because he died in 1860.
Jer je umro 1860.
But there are other stories.
Ali postoje drugi priče.
Like a man who had some bleeding in his head.
Kao čovjek koji imao krvarenje u glavi.
And actually he was a former convict.
I bio je bivši zatvorenik.
And then he started to write poems.
I onda je počeo da piše pesme.
So, and many other examples.
I ima drugih primjera.
So some people say, okay, if this is the case,
Da neki ljudi kažu, dobro, ako je ovo slučaj,
then obviously our personality and all human traits are nothing but a function of the brain and the neurons.
i kažu, ok, znači ličnost i sve ljudske osobine su ništa osim funkcija našeg mozga i neurona.
My character is just the firing of the neurons.
Moj karakter je samo ispaljivanje neuronskih signala.
We call this worldview reductionist materialism,
Ovaj pogled na svijet zovemo redukcioni materializam.
which means there is only matter,
To znači postoji samo materija
and everything that we observe
i sve što posmatramo
can be reduced to material processes.
može da se redukuje ili smanji na materijalne procese.
And this also means
I ovo isto tako znači
that our self is just an illusion.
da ja je iluzija.
It's not really existing.
Ne postoji zapravo.
Because in reality it's just neurons that are firing.
Jer u realnosti samo ispaljuju neuroni.
And of course this is a very radical position.
I naravno veoma radikalna pozicija.
Because it claims that all our self-conceptions are deluded.
Jer tvrdi da su sve naše koncepcije o nama zablude.
But if that is true,
Ali ako je to istina,
we should be able to construct artificial intelligence, rebuild the brain.
onda bismo mogli da napravimo veštačku inteligenciju i da ponovo izgradimo mozak.
And artificial intelligence should be able to exhibit the same properties that we have.
I veštačka inteligencija bi trebalo da iskaže iste osobine koje mi imamo.
If we build it in the right way.
Ako izgradimo na pravi način.
And so some people say the brain works just like a computer.
Tako da neki ljudi kažu da mozak funkcioniše isto kao kompjuter.
And so they rebuild or they try to remodel the brain in a computer.
Onda pokušaju da izgrade ili da modeluju mozak u kompjuteru.
Using neural networks.
Koristeći neuronske mreže.
So they have an input layer where you enter data.
Tako da imaju ulazni sloj gdje ubacuju podatke.
And you have an output layer where you have a reaction or some evaluation of the data.
I onda ima izlazni sloj koji pokazuje reakciju i rezultate podataka.
And we can control this output layer.
I možemo da kontrolišemo taj izlaz.
And the data in the input layer are somehow processed in hidden layers that are intermediate.
I podaci sa ulaznog sloja se nekako procesiraju u tom srednjem sloju koji je skriven.
For example, this is a funny example.
Ovo je recimo jedan smešan primjer.
Like we observe large ears, large eyes, large teeth, or someone who's friendly or who's beautiful.
Znači, na primjer, posmatramo nekog koji ima velike oči, uši, zube, koji je lep.
This is actually taken from the fairy tale of Redhead. Do you have Redhead as a fairy tale?
Yeah.
A little girl going to her grandmother.
Yeah. Znači, ovo je kao uzeto iz bajke o Crvenoj kapici.
And as the output, you either run away, or you scream, or you kiss the cheeks, or you start to flirt.
I onda kao izlazi imate da ili pobegnete, ili poljubite, ili počnete da flirtujete.
And so the intermediate layers somehow need to figure out
Tako da u srednjem sloju nekako treba da provalimo
which properties belong to which being.
koje osobine pripadaju tom biću.
Like, is it the grandmother?
Kao na primjer, da li je to baka,
Is it the wolf?
da li je vuk,
Or is it the hunter?
ili je lovac.
But of course, we see already with this analogy
Ali naravno, već s ovom analogijom vidimo
that as human beings, we focus on objects, on concepts.
da mi kao ljudska bića se fokusiramo na koncepte i na objekte.
But the neural network simply puts value functions towards the process ways.
Ali ovdje vidimo da neuronska mreža samo stavlja određene vrednosti za povezanosti u tom smjeru.
So there are numbers, and depending on the numbers, the data are processed in a different way.
Tako da imamo brojeve, za razliku kako su ti brojevi namešteni, podaci se procesuiraju na drugačiji način.
While as human beings, we have these concepts of different persons.
To kao ljudska bića nam drugačije koncepte o ovim osobama.
So this is already an indication, is our computer analogy already correct?
I onda je ovo već pitanje da li je naša analogija kompjutera već tačna.
But nevertheless, with this method of deep learning and neural networks,
Ali u svakom slučaju ova metoda deep learninga, dubokog učenja i neuronskih mreža,
the chess computer Deep Blue was constructed,
šahovski program Deep Blue je napravljen
and it won against Garry Kasparov.
i pobedio protiv Garry Kasparova.
Not only once,
I ne samo jednom,
but even it won the whole match in 1997.
već je pobedio ceo meč 97.
And Kasparov was furious against this.
I Kasparov je bio besan protiv ovog.
He basically said, this is not a machine, I was really playing against an intelligent being.
Rekao je, ovo nije mašina, već sam igrao sa nekim pametnim ljudskim bićem.
What should he say as he had lost?
I šta treba da kaže kad je izgubio?
The Japanese game Go was considered to be much more complex than chess.
Go je smatran igrom koja je mnogo komplikovanija od šaha.
But Google's computer AlphaGo even managed to to win against the Go champion Lee Sedol.
Ali Googleov AlphaGo je uspio da pobedi tadašnjeg šampiona Lee Sedela.
So it seems that artificial intelligence has won against human beings.
I tako da izgleda da je veštačka inteligencija pobedila protiv ljudi.
And the development goes on.
I razvoj ide dalje.
We try to produce beings that resemble more and more ourselves.
Pokušamo da proizvedemo biće koje se više liče na nas.
We create machines in our own image.
Pravimo mašine u našem liku.
For example, in Japan,
Na primjer u Japanu,
they celebrated at the beginning of this year
na početku godine su slavili
the android Mindar,
androida Mindar,
which is claimed to be a Buddhist goddess,
koja se tvrdi da je budistička boginja
a representation of a Buddhist god.
ili reprezentacija budističkog boga.
And you can pray to that god,
I mogu se moliti tom bogu,
you can ask questions,
možete postaviti pitanja
and this god responds
i ovaj bog odgovara
and gives rational answers.
i daje racionalne odgovore.
But of course, it is programmed by intelligent human beings to
Ali
give
naravno,
these answers.
ali naravno programiranje od strane inteligentnih ljudskih bića da daje ovakve odgovore.
Actually, the book Homo Deus by Yuval Harari, which some of you might know, is all about this: how do we develop mankind to another step?
Ova knjiga od Yuval Noah Harari, Homo Deus, je priča o tome kako da razvijemo čovečanstvo na taj sljedeći korak.
But the big question that I have is,
Ali pitanje koje ja imam,
is this really intelligence that we meet here?
da li je ovo inteligencija što ovdje srećemo?
Because what we actually observe with playing chess
Jer ono što vidimo kad se igra šah
or playing Go
ili go,
is that we have so-called weak artificial intelligence.
imamo takozvanu slabu veštačku inteligenciju.
That means it is programmed for a very certain purpose
To znači da je programirana za veoma jednu određenu svrhu
and can calculate more data and faster than the human brain.
i može da računa podatke brže od ljudskog mozga.
That's why the chess computer wins against Garry Kasparov if it has enough working memory.
I zato je šahovski program pobedio Garry Kasparova ako ima više rama.
And it's very pleasant. For example, we have a vacuum cleaner at home.
I onda je veoma prijatno, imamo usisivač kod kuće.
But if you try to use the vacuum cleaner in order to wash your dishes,
Ali ako koristite usisivač da operete sudove,
the vacuum cleaner does not succeed.
usisivač ne uspeva.
So they are very specialized for certain tasks.
Tako da su usko specijalizovane za određene zadatke.
When we deal with human intelligence, on the other hand,
Kada se bavimo ljudskom inteligencijom sa druge strane,
we usually speak of general artificial intelligence,
govorimo o generalnoj veštačkoj inteligenciji,
which says that we can even think about the problems that we want to solve.
što znači da možemo i da razmišljamo o problemima koje želimo da rešimo.
And we are flexible to develop our own methods in order to solve certain problems.
I fleksibili smo u traženju načina da rešimo određene probleme.
Like the human mind has been able to discover the following law.
Kao na primjer, ljudski um je uspio da otkrije sljedeći zakon.
Newton saw that an apple would fall from a tree,
Newton je video da će jabuka da padne sa drveta,
if that story is true,
ako je ta priča istinita.
and he saw that the moon would orbit around the earth.
I video je da će mjesec da ide oko zemlje.
And he connected the two phenomena with each other
I povezuje ta dva fenomena jedno s drugim
and had the idea of a universal gravitational law.
i došao je do ideje univerzalnog zakona o gravitaciji.
Some very deep insight into nature.
Veoma duboko uvid u prirodu.
He solved a very deep problem.
I video je jedan veoma velik problem.
And I doubt that a computer would ever have this kind of insight and connect these two problems.
I sumnjam da bi kompjuter mogao da ima ovakav tip uvida i da poveže ove dva problema.
And it's actually not easy to define intelligence at all.
I uopšte nije lako definisati šta je to inteligencija.
There have been several approaches to systematize what intelligence actually is.
Postojalo nekoliko pristupa da se sistematizuje šta je to inteligencija,
But all of these models suffer from one defect.
ali svi ovi modeli prate jedan defekt.
There is an unspecified so-called G factor,
Postoji takozvani nespecificirani G faktor,
which somehow decides what we want to do how.
što određuje kako želimo šta da radimo.
Some creative thing,
Neku kreativnu stvar,
which is unique to human beings.
što je jedinstveno ljudskim bićima.
And we don't even know how to systematize that.
Ne znam ni kako da sistematizujemo.
So, if we think about the deification of humanity,
Tako da ako razmislimo o deifikaciji čovečanstva,
for example through biological engineering,
na primjer kroz biološki inženjering,
changing our own algorithms,
menjanju sopstvenih algoritama
or connecting us with anorganic matter and anorganic algorithms
ili povezivanju sa neorganskim algoritmima i materijama
through cyborg engineering,
kroz kiborgski inženjering,
which can happen already in medicine, for example, in remote surgery,
koji se već može desiti u medicini, na primjer, u nekim operacijama,
or even in uploading our consciousness towards a global server or something like that.
ili uploadovanju naše svesti na neki globalni server ili tako nešto.
We need to understand much better what actually consciousness and intelligence is.
Moramo bolje da razumemo što je to svest i inteligencija.
Because a computer just has currents flowing or not flowing.
Zato što kompjuter ima samo to da li struja teče ili ne teče.
And the computer just follows certain algorithms.
I kompjuter samo prati striktne algoritme.
And these algorithms can even be programmed in a way that they can vary.
I algoritmi mogu da se programiraju na taj način da imaju varijaciju.
But when you look at human beings,
Ali kada pogledate ljudska bića,
they can even think about the algorithms.
oni mogu i da razmišljaju o algoritmima.
And we don't think so much in processes,
I ne mislimo toliko o procesima,
but as I showed with the redhead example,
već kao što sam povezao sa primjerom o crvenoj kapici,
we think more about concepts and meaning.
razmišljamo o konceptu i svrsi.
We have thoughts and images about concepts.
Imamo misli i slike o konceptima.
A famous thought experiment clarifies this.
I ovo pojašnjava jedan poznati misaoni eksperiment.
Imagine a Chinese person
Zamislite Kineza
looking for an answer to a certain question.
koji traži odgovor na pitanje.
So she puts the question into a black box.
I ubaci pitanje u crnu kutiju.
And in this black box is a person who has no idea about Chinese.
I u ovoj crnoj kutiji je osoba koja nema pojma kineski.
But this person has a very intelligent lookup table.
Ali ova osoba ima veoma inteligentnu tablicu za traženje.
All possible questions are catalogized.
Sva moguća pitanja su raspoređena po katalogu
And they show which answer you should hand out at the output.
i kažu koji odgovor treba da proslediš na izlazu.
So this person, maybe a German,
Tako da ova osoba, možda Nemac,
takes a good answer and puts it out.
uzme odgovor i izbaci ga napolje.
And the Chinese thinks, wow, that's great.
I Kinez misli, ovo je super.
This is an intelligent Chinese person, this black box.
Ovo je crna kutija, inteligentna kineska osoba.
But the problem is that the person inside has no idea about Chinese.
Ali problem je što osoba unutra nema pojma kineski.
It is only working according to the algorithms that are laid down in this book.
Ona radi samo po algoritmima koji su zadati u knjizi.
And if there is a mistake in the book, then the person is lost.
I ako ima greška u knjizi, onda je osoba izgubljena.
And that's when Windows breaks down, for example.
Tada Windows pada, na primjer.
So why I believe that a computer is not really an intelligent being?
Tako da zašto ja verujem da kompjuter nije zapravo inteligentno biće?
I think that a prerequisite to be an intelligent being is that you must be able to have thoughts.
Mislim da je preduslov da bi bio inteligentno biće sposobnost da imaš misli.
To be aware of concepts, of intentions.
Biti svestan koncepata i namjera.
Like human beings, they have own goals, they have ideas.
Kao ljudska bića imamo ciljeve, imamo ideje.
And we can think rationally about things.
I možemo racionalno da mislimo o tim stvarima.
A computer only simulates rational thinking via algorithms.
Kompjuter samo simulira to ponašanje putem algoritama.
But if a computer is able to simulate the effects of a black hole,
Ali ako kompjuter može da simulira efekat crne rupe
in the simulation,
u simulaciji,
it does not distort space-time around the computer.
simulacija ne menja prostor i vreme oko kompjutera.
It's just calculating the right input, the right output for a given input.
Samo računa izlaz za zadati ulaz.
And so I think that the computer is actually lacking conscious insight.
Tako da mislim da kompjuteru fali svesni uvid svesti.
But as we have mentioned consciousness, we need to come on to the next chapter.
Ali kako smo spomenuli svest, moramo da odemo na sljedeće poglavlje.
But let's talk about this first.
Ali idemo prvo o ovome.
We often think the computer is our servant.
Često mislimo da je kompjuter naš sluga.
Fetch my emails,
Daj mi email,
navigate to John's house,
daj mi put do Jovanove kuće,
send this photo to my friend,
pošalji ovu sliku prijatelju.
and the computer does it, yes master.
I kompjuter kaže da gospodaru.
And if artificial reality is true intelligence, it's probably the other way around.
Ali u ovoj realnosti istina je vjerovatno na drugi način.
Charge me,
Napuni me,
Give me some Wi-Fi now.
Daj mi Wi-Fi sad.
You have new email. Come on, read.
Imaš novi email, pročitaj.
And we just say, yes, master.
I mi samo kažemo da, gospodaru.
And this just shows we need to be careful about our relationship with artificial intelligence.
Ja sam pokazuje da moramo biti svesni našeg odnosa sa veštačkom
Or
inteligencijom.
with technical devices in general.
Ili sa tehničkim uređajima generalno.
I mean, a smartphone is not necessarily artificial intelligence.
Mislim, smartphone nije baš obavezno veštačka inteligencija.
So the big question is life reducible to data flux and decisions?
Tako da je veliko pitanje da li je život stvarno može umanjiti na protok podataka i odluke.
Because this is what artificial intelligence is all about.
Jer o ovome se radi u veštačkoj inteligenciji.
Data and categorization of data.
Podaci i kategorizacija tih podataka.
But I would say that human activity is much more than just data flux.
Ali rekao bih da je ljudska aktivnost više od samog protoka podataka.
And human beings have consciousness.
Ljudska bića imaju svest.
And the question is of whether this is irreducibly different from material, from matter.
I pitanje je da li se može smanjiti na materiju.
So what is consciousness?
Tako da šta je svest?
This has been a problem for at least 2 centuries.
Ovo je problem barem 2 veka.
The problem of consciousness constitutes today the ultimate frontier of human striving for knowledge.
Problem svesti predstavlja glavni
the ultimate frontier, the ultimate limit, the ultimate
glavnu granicu ljudske potrage za znanjem.
To understand, yeah. How does unconscious matter, like stones and so on, how do they produce conscious life?
I kako nesvesne stvari poput kamenje proizvode svestan život.
Is it just a matter of the number of neurons?
Da li je samo pitanje broja neurona?
It's like this.
To je ovako.
There is something going on in us and the question is, do we see it?
Ima nešto što se dešava nama i pitanje je da li vidimo.
Do you see the bird that is hidden here in this picture?
Da li vidite pticu koja je sakrivena na ovoj slici?
Some people might have a guess.
Neki ljudi bi pogađali.
And the question is, where is consciousness in the brain?
I pitanje je gde je svest u mozgu.
It's even hard to think what is consciousness.
Teško misliti šta je to svest.
And actually we only have phenomenal definitions of that.
I imamo samo fenomenalne definicije toga.
Like, it is what I realize when I pay attention to who I am.
Kao to je ono što shvatam kada...
To how I am.
To je ono što shvatam kada obratim pažnju na to kako ja jesam.
Like, take a few seconds and just close your eyes and think, what do you feel? Who are you? How are you?
Samo zatvorite oči i onda razmislite na nekoliko sekundi ko ste vi.
Is it just physiological processes that are going on?
Da li se dešavaju samo fiziološki procesi?
I think we are aware of something, we experience something.
Mislim smo svesni nečega da doživljavamo nešto.
And we are even aware that we are aware of something.
I da smo svesni da jesmo svesni.
And we are aware that we are aware that we are aware of something.
I da smo svesni toga da smo svesni.
In materialism, this is really a big problem. How can this happen if neurons is everything there is?
U materializmu ovo predstavlja problem kako se to dešava ako smo mi samo neuroni.
If the self is an immaterial, non-material reality, which can interact with matter, it's possible.
Ako je naše ja nematerijalna stvarnost koja može da se dolazi u kontakt sa materijom, onda je moguće.
So worldview presuppositions enter into this.
Tako da pretpostavke o našem pogledu na svet ulaze u ovo.
And so brain scientists differ in their opinion what actually is the reason for consciousness.
Tako da naučnici o mozgu se raspravljaju o tome šta je uzrok svesti.
Some people think it has to do with maybe one giant neuron that is somehow in the brain.
Neki misle da ima veze sa jednim velikim neuronom koji je u mozgu.
Like Christoph Koch thought until shortly ago.
Kao što je Christoph Koch mislio do nedavno.
But other scientists would say consciousness doesn't arise in a single brain area, but through the dynamic concurrence of many brain regions.
Ali drugi bi rekli svest nastaje u jednom određenom delu mozga, već kroz dinamičku konkurentnost mnogih regiona mozga.
So it's all of the brain that somehow creates consciousness.
Tako da je ceo mozak taj koji nekako stvara svest.
But what do we actually measure?
Ali šta mi zapravo merimo?
We measure that there is brain activity.
Merimo da postoji moždana aktivnost.
While the person reports a certain activity.
Kada osoba prijavi tu neku aktivnost.
So what we measure is actually correlation.
Ono što merimo je zapravo korelacija.
Material processes go along with consciousness.
Materijalni procesi idu zajedno sa svesti.
If you presuppose that everything is matter,
Ako napravite pretpostavku u početku da je sve materija,
then you can say this is a causal relationship.
onda možete da kažete da je ovo kauzalna veza.
You can say that material processes obviously produce consciousness
Možete reći da materijalni procesi proizvode svest,
because they happen at the same time.
jer se dešavaju istovremeno.
And what else could cause them?
I šta bi drugo moglo da ih izaziva?
But if you are not sure about that, you can only say it happens at the same time.
Ali ako niste sigurni u tom pogledu, možete reći samo da se dešavaju u isto vreme.
I can change the state of your physiological brain right now.
Mogu da promenim fiziološku strukturu vašeg mozga sada,
Because I can say,
jer mogu da kažem
what is 13 times 17?
koliko je 13 puta 17.
And you start to calculate in your brain.
Onda počinjete da računate u mozgu.
And you start because of an idea that I have given you.
I počinjete zbog ideje koju sam ja dao.
And the idea in this case was given to you by acoustic signals.
A ideja vam je u ovom slučaju data akustičnim signalima.
I could also have written it up on a sheet of paper.
Također sam mogao da je zapišem na papiru.
Then it would have been optical signals.
To onda bi bili optički signali.
So it seems that ideas, mental phenomena, can change the state of matter.
I tako da izgleda da ideje i mentalni fenomeni mogu da promene stanje materije.
So I would be careful to assume a one-way causality too easily.
Tako da bih bio oprezan da olako uzmem ovaj drugi pogled kauzalnosti.
Because you make many risky presuppositions.
Ja dolaziš do mnogo rizičnih pretpostavki.
Generally, there are two theories about what consciousness is.
Generalno postoje dve teorije o tome šta je svest.
One says that consciousness is like a global neuronal workspace, like a blackboard.
Jedan kaže da je to globalni neuronski rad kao tabla.
Some limited information is available for all regions of the brain at the same time.
Određene ograničene informacije su dostupne mozgu u isto vrijeme.
According to this theory, machines might be able to develop consciousness at one stage.
Po ovoj teoriji u jednom momentu mašine mogu dostići svest.
According to Christoph Koch's new theory,
Po teoriji Christopha Kocha, koja je nova,
the integrated information theory,
teorija integrisane informacije,
every experience, every conscious experience is intrinsic, only available to the first person, to me, myself.
svako iskustvo je dostupno meni, samo meni intrinzično,
And is characterized by a chronological understanding,
i okarakterisano je hronološkim razumijevanjem.
connecting cause and effect in different perceptions.
Povezivanje uzroka i posljedice različitih percepcija.
And it is a unified experience,
I to je jedinstveno iskustvo.
one unified feeling that cannot be divided up.
Jedno jedinstveno iskustvo koje se ne može podijeliti.
And according to him, no machine will ever be able to develop consciousness.
I prema njemu nijedna mašina nikada neće moći da razvije svest.
And consciousness must be integrated in the machine from the beginning. It cannot be added on to a machine that has no consciousness.
I svest se mora odmah integrisati u mašini, ne može se proizvesti ako mašina krene da radi bez svesti.
These two models are just working models in the moment, and we don't know where they will lead to.
Ova dva modela su samo dva modela u progresu i ne znamo kuda će otići.
But we can think about that. What is consciousness?
Ali možemo da mislimo o tome šta je svest.
So let's have a thought experiment again.
Tako da ajmo još jedan misaoni eksperiment.
Imagine a scientist, Mary,
Zamislite naučnika Marije,
and she knows everything that she can know scientifically about seeing colors.
i zna sve što može naučno da zna o viđenju boja.
She knows the physics,
Zna fiziku,
the chemistry, the biology, the psychology,
hemiju, biologiju, psihologiju
and everything else.
i sve ostalo.
Her only problem is that she herself is colorblind.
Jedan jedini problem koji ona ima je to što je daltonista.
So she knows everything,
Tako da zna sve,
but has not the personal experience.
ali nema lično iskustvo.
And then she undergoes surgery,
Onda ide na operaciju
and suddenly she sees the colors.
i onda odjednom vidi boje.
And the question is,
I
did she
pitanje,
learn anything new?
I pitanje je da li je naučila nešto novo.
If she learned anything new,
Ako je naučila nešto novo,
that would mean that the personal experience is not reducible to physical facts.
to bi značilo da je fizički proces, da...
the personal experience cannot be
Onda se
reduced
lične iskustva ne mogu smanjiti na fizičke
to
činjenice.
physical facts only.
Isključivo.
And so the qualitative aspect of the states of our consciousness is more, and scientific knowledge does not imply the qualitative aspect, how it feels like.
Tako da kvalitativni aspekt ne pruža potpuno.
Can you just
The complete scientific knowledge
Znači,
does
kompletno
not
naučno
imply
znanje ne implicira znanje o kvalitativnom aspektu
knowledge about the qualitative aspect of the states of our consciousness.
stanja naših svesti.
Like how it feels.
Na primjer, kako se osjeća to nešto.
But conscious experience is an additional fact
Ali svesno iskustvo je dodatna činjenica,
that cannot be reduced to purely physical processes.
koja se ne može isključivo smanjiti na fizički proces.
Because then Mary could not have learned something new.
Jer onda Marija ne bi mogla da nauči nešto novo.
And there is another problem with the reductionist materialism.
Postoji još jedan problem sa redukcionim materializmom.
If my mental processes, like my thoughts,
Ako moji mentalni procesi kao moje misli
are determined wholly by the motions of atoms in my brain,
su potpuno određeni pokretima atomima u mom mozgu,
I have no reason to suppose that my beliefs are true.
nemam nikakvog razloga da pretpostavim da su moja verovanja tačna.
They may be sound chemically,
Možda su tačna hemijski,
but that does not make them sound logically.
ali to ih ne čini tačnim logički.
And hence I have no reason for supposing my brain to be composed of atoms.
Tako da nemam razloga da pretpostavim da je moj mozak izgrađen od atoma.
If thoughts are identical with brain currents,
Ako su misli identične sa strujenjem mozga,
I can always say my atoms make me believe A,
mogu da kažem moji atomi mi teraju da verujem u A,
and your atoms make you believe B.
a vaši atomi teraju vas da verujete u B.
And that's it.
I to je to.
Natural selection will show in the end who is fit better to the environment.
Prirodna selekcija će odlučiti ko je bolji i pogodniji za sredinu.
But why should that arrive at truth?
Ali zašto bi to išlo ka istini?
Why should that kind of thinking arrive at the insight into a gravitational law as Newton did, for example?
Zašto bi to dovelo do uvida o gravitacionom zakonu kao što je Newton to uradio?
There is no reason to believe that.
Ne postoji razlog da to verujemo.
So rationality in this case would be a product of irrational processes.
Tako da bi racionalnost u ovom slučaju bio produkt neracionalnih procesa.
And this would mean that we would cut off the branch on which all of science is sitting, actually.
Što bi značilo da treba da odsečemo granu na kojoj cijela nauka sedi.
Because as the German philosopher Jürgen Habermas has said,
Jer kao što je Jürgen Habermas, nemački filozof, rekao,
then there are no reasons, no logical reasons anymore, but only physical causes.
onda ne postoje razlozi, logički razlozi, već samo uzroci.
And that's a big issue.
I to je veliki problem.
And if reductionist materialism is true, we not only have a problem with our rational thinking and with our consciousness,
Iako je redukcioni materializam tačno, imamo problem samo sa našom svešću,
but the question is, do we have a free will at all?
već je pitanje da li uopšte imamo slobodnu volju.
Benjamin Libet did experiments on that.
Benjamin Libet je izvršio eksperimente na tim,
He measured the brain currents of a test person.
izmerio je moždane talase osobe,
By this test person had to press a certain button.
i dok je ova osoba morala da pritiska dugme.
And the person should observe the position of the clock when they made the decision to move the finger.
I osoba bi posmatrala vreme sata kada bi donela odluku da pritisne sat.
So what did they measure in the brain currents?
Tako da šta su izmerili u mozgu?
They measured an electrical potential,
Izmerili su električni potencijal,
which was reduced as soon as the movement started.
koji je bio smanjen odmah nakon što je pokret počeo.
On average, the decision to move was reported at about 200 milliseconds before the movement started.
U proseku pokret je prijavljen 200 milisekundi pre nego što je pokret počeo.
But the potential that could be measured began already to rise about 550 milliseconds before that.
Ali potencijal za to je počeo 550 milisekundi pre.
So what people concluded from that
Tako da što su ljudi zaključili iz toga,
was that obviously we don't have a free will.
je da očigledno nemamo slobodnu volju.
Because the brain makes a decision,
Jer mozak donosi odluku,
and then only later we think it's our decision and we think we have decided to move the finger.
onda tek kasnije dolazimo do zaključka da je to naša odluka i da pomeramo prst.
But of course there was a lot of criticism towards this experiment.
I naravno bilo mnogo kritike u ovom eksperimentu.
First of all, people said this is not a real situation of decision making.
Prvo ljudi su rekli da ovo nije stvarna situacija donošenja odluke.
Because the decision to move the finger has already been made.
Jer je odluka da se pomeri prst već donešena.
And then the moment of the conscious decision is measured very subjectively.
Onda se moment fizičkog pokretanja meri veoma subjektivno.
There was a large variety, actually, among the different test persons.
I među različitim osobama postoje velike različite varijacije.
And then actually, Aaron Schurger in 2012 revisited all the data of lipid.
Onda je 2012. Aaron Schurger posjetio ponovo taj eksperiment.
And he claims that actually his whole way of measuring the electrical potential was wrong.
I zaključuje da cijel njegov način merenja tog električnog potencijala bio pogrešan.
He says it's a reverse averaging artifact of chance fluctuations.
I rekao da je to artefakt unazad računanja prosječnog
chance fluctuations.
I fluktuacije šansi slučajnosti.
And not a real thing.
I da nije stvarna stvar.
But let's see what John Dylan Haynes did.
Ali da vidimo što je uradio John Dylan Haynes.
Until 2015 he also believed in Libid's interpretation.
I do 2015 on je verovao u to libidovu interpretaciju.
And he wanted to test it.
I htio da je testira.
So he set a test person in front of a screen.
Tako da je postavio osobu pred ekran.
When the screen was green and the test person would step on a pedal,
kada je ekran bio zelen i osoba stisnula na pedalu,
the test person would get a point.
Osoba koja radi test bi dobila poen.
If the test person would step on a pedal while the screen was red,
ako bi osoba stala dok je ekran bio crven,
the computer would score.
Kompjuter bi dobio poen.
And so the test person stepped on the pedal.
I tako da je osoba zgazila pedalu.
And at the beginning they got a lot of scores.
I u početku imali su puno bodova.
But at some point the computer could figure out by its algorithms.
Ali tokom vremena kompjuter bi provalio svojim algoritmima.
At which stage the brain made the decision in order to move the foot.
U kojoj fazi je mozak donio odluku da pritisne pedalu.
And so the computer switches to red.
I onda bi kompjuter promenio na crvenu boju.
If humans were determined by this readiness potential in the brain, as Libid claims,
ako su ljudi određeni tim potencijalnom spremnosti kao što je Libid tvrdio,
we would have no opportunity to change our decision.
Ne bismo imali nikakvu priliku da promenimo svoju odluku.
But the surprising result was
ali iznenađujući rezultat
that the test persons could stop their movements.
Je bio da su osobe sa istraživanjem mogle da zaustave svoje pokrete.
The computer had already made the decision or made the prediction, now the movement takes place.
The brain.
The computer.
Kompjuter je već odlučio da se pokretanje stopala dešava.
But the test person could still see, oh now it's red, so I don't move.
Ali osoba je dalje mogla da zaključi da ekran je crven i da se ne pomera.
So this electrical potential obviously does not determine our movement.
Tako da ovaj električni potencijal ipak ne determiniše naše pokrete.
There is something else that can interfere with that.
Postoji nešto drugo što se meša sa tim.
So today most people would say we are not determined by our brain states.
Tako da bi većina ljudi rekli da nismo determinisani stanjem našeg mozga.
Are we interested in that question? Like, can we locate God and believe in God in the brain? Or should I skip it?
Da li smo zainteresovani za pitanje da li možemo da nađemo Boga u mozgu ili da preskoči?
Who says I should skip it?
Ko kaže da ga preskoči?
One person only, I'm sorry.
Jedna osoba, žao mi te.
So, okay, I will go about that.
Ok, pričat ću o ovome.
This is another interesting experiment.
Ovo je još jedan zanimljiv eksperiment.
Michael Persinger constructed a so-called God helmet.
Michael Persing je napravio takozvanu Božju kacigu.
And so he stimulates the brain with magnetic fields.
I stimuliše mozak magnetnim poljem.
And he says that when he stimulates the left side of the brain,
I kaže da kad stimuliše levu hemisferu,
persons can hear voices.
ljudi mogu da čuju glasove.
When he stimulates the right side of the brain,
kad stimuliše desnu stranu,
persons can feel a presence
osobe mogu da osjete prisustvo
of another being next to them.
nekog drugog bića pored njih.
Even though they sit for half an hour in an empty, dark room.
Iako pola sata sede u praznoj, crnoj, mračnoj sobi.
However, the specific experience actually depends on the worldview of the people.
Ali specifično iskustvo je zavisilo od pogleda na svet ljudi.
Some people report that they heard Jesus.
Neki ljudi kažu da su čuli Isusa.
Others think it was Buddha.
Drugi misle da je Buda.
Others talk about aliens.
Treći pričaju o vanzemaljcima.
Spirits.
Duhovima.
Or their deceased mother-in-law.
Ili na preminuloj tašti.
So, a Swedish group in Uppsala actually said, we want to test this.
Tako da je švedska grupa u Uppsali odlučila da oni to testiraju.
And they made the experiment better.
I poboljšali su eksperiment.
Because they made a double-blind study.
Jer su radili duplo slepu studiju.
Which means that actually the magnetic fields were not always active.
Što znači da magnetno polje nije uvijek bilo aktivno.
And even the test conductor did not know whether the magnetic field was active or not.
I čak ni osoba koja je izvršila testiranje nije znala da li je aktivno to magnetno polje ili ne.
It was only recorded in the minutes, in the protocol.
Samo je zapisano u minutima u protokolu.
So the test person again sits 30 minutes in the dark.
Tako da test osoba sedi 30 minuta u mraku.
And the interesting finding is
I zanimljivi rezultat
that the control group, where the magnetic fields were not active at all,
da kontrolna grupa gdje uopšte nije bilo magnetnog polja
reported about the same number of mystic experiences as the stimulated group.
i prijavila isti broj mističnih iskustava kao grupa koja je imala magnetni talas.
So the Swedish group concludes there is no evidence for an effect of the magnetic fields.
Tako da je švedska grupa zaključila da nema nikakvog efekta od magnetnog polja.
They only say that actually the dependence is much more on the traits and of the thoughts and belief systems of the test persons.
I da sve to zavisi o mislima i pogledima na svet osoba koje su na testu.
For example, atheist Richard Dawkins, he had no mystic experience when he went to Persinger to have this experiment with him.
Na primjer, ateista Richard Dawkins nije imao nikakvih mističnih iskustava kad je išao kod Persingera na eksperiment.
Of course, Persinger was not so happy about this.
Naravno, Persinger nije bio srećan ovim.
And he says, you have made a mistake there.
I kaže, tu ste napravili grešku.
You should at least have noticed that there is a difference between right-hand side stimulation and left-hand side stimulation.
Morali se da primijenite da postoji razlika između stimulacije leve i desne strane.
So whatever, we can't judge that from the outside.
Tako da, dobro, ne možemo da sudimo tome s polja.
What does this experiment show?
Ali šta eksperiment pokazuje?
Let's assume that Persinger is right.
Pretpostavimo da je Persinger u pravu.
And we can stimulate God experiences in the brain.
I možemo da stimulišemo iskustva Boga u mozgu.
Would that refute the existence of God?
Da li bi to povrlo postojanje Boga?
Let's assume we could stimulate the brain in a way that we have a cookie experience.
Pretpostavimo da možemo da stimulišemo mozak da imamo iskustvo kolača.
Or a birthday cake experience.
Ili rođendanski tort.
Even though there is no birthday cake present.
Iako nema nigde rođendanski tort.
Would that refute that there are actually birthday cakes in reality?
Da li bi to povrlo da postoje rođendanski tort u stvarnosti?
No, it only proves that our brain is capable of making these kinds of experiences.
Ne, to samo pokazuje da je naš mozak sposoban za ovakva iskustva.
So this experiment doesn't show anything about the existence of God.
Tako da ovaj eksperiment ne pokazuje ništa o postojanju Boga.
It only would prove that our brain is capable of making these experiences.
To bi samo pokazalo da je naš mozak sposoban da napravi ovakva iskustva.
But the other big question is,
Ali drugo veliko pitanje
is a God experience always mystical?
je da li je iskustvo Boga uvijek mistično.
I personally never had a mystical God experience, I would say.
Ja lično nikad nisam imao takvo iskustvo.
But I still would claim that I have made experiences with God.
Ali i tvrdio bih da sam imao ta iskustva sa Bogom.
By having certain insights,
Imajući neke uvide,
rational insights,
racionalne uvide,
by having certain emotions,
određene emocije,
or by experiencing some form of guidance within complicated situations.
ili kada sam iskusio nekakvu vrstu vodstva u komplikovanim situacijama.
But all of these experiences would not be measured in this experiment.
Ali sva ova iskustva se ne bi mogla meriti u ovom eksperimentu.
So let's just summarize what we have heard so far.
Tako da sažmemo ono što smo čuli.
Neuroscience can only measure activities of brain regions, but not the content of our thoughts.
Neuronauka može da meri samo aktivnosti u moždanim regionima, ali ne i sadržaj naših misli.
The content of our experience and our thoughts is reserved to the first person, to myself.
Sadržaj iskustva naših misli je rezervisano samo za osobu koja ih doživljava.
But consciousness, will, decision making, intentionality, logical thoughts are absolutely essential experiences to be a human being.
Ali svest, volja, odluke, namera i logičke misli su ključne za ljudsko iskustvo.
If you are a reductionist materialist,
Ako ste redukcioni materijalista,
all these things that are typical for human beings are just illusions.
sve ove stvari koje su tipične za ljudsko iskustvo su samo iluzije.
And nothing but neuronal activity.
I ništa osim neuronske aktivnosti.
Couldn't it be that this is just material phenomena that go hand in hand with mental phenomena?
Da li je ovo slučaj da je to samo materijalni fenomen koji ide samo ruk pod ruku sa mentalnim fenomenom?
So there are some scientists who would say, no, we are not reductionist materialists.
Tako da postoje neki naučnici koji kažu ne, nismo redukcioni materijalisti.
We are non-reductionist materialists.
Mi smo neredukcioni materijalisti.
So mental phenomena like consciousness are not reducible to their neuronal structure.
Tako da mentalni fenomeni ne mogu da se umanjene na njihovu neuronsku strukturu,
But they depend on a material basis.
ali mogu da izvrše uticaj na materijalnoj osnovi,
For example, the brain.
na primjer na mozak.
And now the big question is, are there experiences that can happen even if the brain does not work anymore?
Onda postoje da li mogu da se dese neka iskustva iako mozak ne funkcioniše.
And one big example is near-death experiences.
Jedan veliki primjer su i iskustva bliskih smrti.
And we have testimonies about that already in antique times, but also in medieval times.
Imamo svjedočanstvo o tome već u antičkim vremenima, ali i u srednjem veku.
Like in this famous picture by Hieronymus Bosch about 1500.
Kao na primjer ovoj slici Hieronymus Boscha oko 1500.
He shows a light tunnel.
Pokazuje tunel svetlosti.
And some kind of person is guided by an angel towards the end of the tunnel, which is very bright.
I neka osoba se vodi anđeo vodi tu neku osobu kroz tunel koji na kraju veoma svetao.
And it's very interesting that this is absolutely the same experience that a lot of people report when they have near-death experiences.
I ovo je zanimljivo što mnogi ljudi tvrde slične iskustva kada imaju ta iskustva bliske smrti.
A warm light,
Toplo svetlo,
a
tunel,
leaving their own body,
napuštanje sopstvenog tela,
angels would appear,
anđeli bi se pojavili,
or dead relatives,
ili mrtvi
and
rodbina.
existential feelings of peace or panic.
I egzistencijalno osjećanja mira ili panike.
And this is not just singular cases, it's a lot of people all across different cultures.
I to nisu samo pojedini primjeri, već zajednički primjeri mnogih ljudi u mnogim kulturama.
Medically, these people have coma symptoms.
Medicinski ovi ljudi imaju koma simptome.
If the brain activity is measured, it's usually a flat line.
Ako se meri aktivnost mozga, obično je ravna linija.
And even the electrocardiogram would be a flat line.
I elektrokardiogram bi isto imao ravnu liniju.
So the material basis for brain activity has actually ceased.
Tako da je materijalna osnova za moždanu aktivnost prestala.
Could materialism explain this?
Da li materializam mogu ovo da objasni?
There are some theories about that.
Postoje neke teorije.
For example, that when you're about to die,
Na primjer da dok umirete,
your brain panics
vaš mozak paniči
and saves certain states in your memory
i čuva određena stanja u vašem mozgu, vašem sećanju,
that you cannot process anymore consciously.
koje više ne možete svjesno da procesuirate.
And so when you wake up again,
Tako da kada se ponovo probudite,
these memories are you get aware of these memories,
postanete svjesni tih sećanja
and then you start to realize, oh, that's what I've just experienced.
i onda shvatate, ovo je upravo ono što sam iskusio.
The question is just, does this do justice to what these people report?
Pitanje je da li ovo je dobar odgovor na ono što ljudi tvrde da su iskusili.
They often report very existential experiences.
I prijavljuju često veoma egzistencijalna iskustva.
Like meeting people who have died during that time.
Kao upoznavanje ljudi koji su umrli u istom tom periodu.
And ask for forgiveness, for example, that they have taken away their fiancé 30 years earlier.
I traže oproštaj za nešto što su uradili u prošlosti, kao na primjer uzeli verenicu 30 godina ranije.
And so they decide, I forgive you, and the person goes away.
Jedan odluče, oprostio sam ti, i onda osoba ode.
And when they become conscious again,
Onda kad postanu svesni,
they suddenly hear that actually the person whom they have just forgiven has actually died in these 3 weeks of coma.
I onda čuju da osoba od koje su tražili oproštaj je umrla u te 3 nedelje dok su oni bili u komi.
This is what a friend of mine has reported.
Ovo je ono što je jedan moj prijatelj prijavio.
So it's very spooky to some degree.
Tako je do neke veoma sablazno, do neke mere.
But of course you cannot test it scientifically.
Ali naravno ne može se ispitati naučno.
Because we cannot measure the thoughts and what happens there.
Jer ne možemo da merimo misli i šta se tamo dešava.
But there are other so-called evidential cases that are also very spooky.
Ali postoji i ti evidencijni slučajevi koji su isto tako sablazni.
All this could be fraud.
Samo može da bude prevara.
So it's really hard to test.
Tako da je veoma teško testirati.
But there are several people who record such experiences.
Ali postoje određeni ljudi koji prijavljuju takva iskustva.
For example, that they leave their body and see things that are happening outside the hospital.
Na primjer, kada odu iz svog tela, dok umiru i vide stvari koje se dešavaju oko bolnice.
Like seeing a sport shoe on top of the roof.
Kao da vide patiku na vrhu bolnice.
Or observing a car accident and reporting that 2 people died and 1 person survived.
Ili da vide nesreću koja se desila na putu, vide prijave da je 2 umrlo i da je 1 osoba preživjela.
And when people checked on this was true.
Kada bi ljudi proverili, ispostavilo bi se da je tačno.
And very scary.
Ono što je zastrašujuće,
One case reports that a near-death experienced person
da je osoba koja je bila blizu smrti
confronts their relatives
se suoči sa svojim svom rodbinom
who were waiting in the waiting room,
koji su čekali u čekaonici.
Why one of the relatives has said,
zašto je jedan od rođaka rekao,
whatever happens inside the surgery room, I hope it happens fast.
Šta god da se, jedan rođak rekao, šta god da se desi u operacionoj sali, neka se desi brzo.
And the person in the surgery room would have had no chance to actually hear what they were saying.
I osoba iz koje je bila operisana nije imala nikakve šanse da to čuje.
So it's really very hard to test, but it is reported.
Tako da je veoma teško testirati, ali se prijavljuje.
So there has been this AWARE project.
Tako da postoji AWARE projekat.
Like you bring in coma patients.
Gde dovedete pacijente sa komom.
And like this, if you are reading this, you are dead.
Gde piše, ako čitate ovo, onda ste mrtvi.
And actually up to now, all the evidence was negative.
I do sada svi dokazi su negativni.
But that does not prove that the other experiences were all wrong.
Ali to ne dokazuje da su sva ostale iskustva pogrešne.
So basically what we see, it's a worldview question.
Tako da ono što vidimo da je to pitanje pogleda na svet.
If we believe in materialism,
ako verujemo u materializam,
there must be a purely material explanation to that.
Mora da postoji čisto materijalno objašnjenje za ovo.
If we believe that human beings are actually immaterial souls,
ako verujemo da su ljudska bića nematerijalne duše,
that live in a body,
koje žive u telu,
then these experiences can be possible.
Onda ova iskustva mogu biti moguća.
And this would be a challenge for materialism.
I ovo bio izazov za materializam.
And of course these experiences are no evidence for the truth of a certain religion.
Naravno, ova iskustva nisu dokaz da je neka religija tačna.
Because they are always subjective.
Jer su uvek subjektivne.
But they somehow are a challenge towards the notion that everything is only material.
Ali predstavljaju izazov za pogled koji kaže da je sve samo materijalno.
But they are debatable.
Ali može da bude debate.
So, let me sum up in the last chapter.
Da sumiram poslednje poglavlje.
We have 3 models how to interpret the scientific data.
Imamo 3 modela kako da interpretiramo naučne podatke.
Either we are reductionist materialists.
Ili smo redukcioni materijalisti.
That would mean that our consciousness is just neural activity.
To bi značilo da je naša svest samo neuronska aktivnost.
And causally determined by natural laws only.
I kauzalno determinirana samo prirodnim zakonima.
The big advantage of that is
velika prednost ovoga
everything runs on natural processes only.
Je da sve samo ide na prirodne procese.
The big disadvantages of this are
veliki nedostaci ovog pogleda su
that all mental phenomena, our self-experiences and everything are only illusions determined by matter.
Mana je to da sva mentalni fenomeni, na primjer kao naše iskustva, su samo iluzije određeni materijom.
And even the theory itself is just an illusion.
Čak i teorija sama je onda iluzija.
Because there is only irrationality.
Jer postoji onda samo iracionalnost.
So, the second model would be non-reductionist materialism.
Drugi model bi bio neredukcionistički materializam.
It would say there is no consciousness without the brain.
Pa bi rekao nema svesti bez mozga.
But consciousness is emergent.
Ali svijest izlazi, počinje da se pojavljuje.
Emergence is a very difficult term.
To je, kaže, veoma težak termin.
And I will come to that in a few moments.
I doći ću do njega za nekoliko momenta.
It says that the natural basis for mental phenomena there is a necessary natural basis for mental phenomena.
Kaže da postoji neophodna prirodna baza za mentalne fenomene.
But the mental phenomena themselves are seen as real.
Ali mentalni fenomeni su viđeni kao stvarni.
They are not an illusion.
Nisu iluzija.
The disadvantage of this is,
mana ovoga.
What do you mean by emergence?
Šta mislite po time da se pojavljuje?
If this only happens with matter present,
ako se ovo dešava samo kada je prisutna materija,
in which way is consciousness more than just the material components?
Kako je onda svijest samo više od svojih materijalnih komponenata?
How should it impact matter?
Kako da utiče na materiju?
So this is called the emergence of the gaps argument.
Tako da se ovaj argument zove izlazak rupa.
And this also refers to where does causal freedom come from? How do we have freedom in this system if everything is just matter?
I onda dolazimo do pitanja kako imamo kauzalnu slobodu ako je sve do sada samo materija.
And so there's a third model, dualism.
I postoji treći model, dualizam.
This says that mind is real.
Ovaj kaže da je realan.
And ontologically it's different from matter.
I ontološki je drugačiji od materije.
The big advantage of this model is
velika prednost ovog modela.
It explains the difference of mind and matter.
Objašnjava razliku između uma i materije.
Near-death experiences are possible in this version.
Iskustva blizu smrti su moguće u ovoj verziji.
The big disadvantages of this model are
velike mane ovog modela su
how does a non-material mind interact with matter?
Kako nematerijalni vrši interakciju sa materijom.
And how can we verify spiritual beings?
I kako da verifikujemo duhovna bića.
And of course the question is what kind of dualism should we adopt? What are souls? What is this?
I onda pitanje je kakav dualizam treba da prihvatimo, šta je ovo?
So we need to be more specific.
Tako da moramo da budemo specifični.
For example, the Greeks believed
na primjer, Grci su verovali
that souls exist for eternity.
Da duše postoje večno.
And they can choose which body they want to inhabit.
I mogu da odluče koje telo žele da nastane.
Or many Greeks believe that the body is actually kind of a prison for the soul.
I mnogi su verovali da je telo zapravo samo zatvor za dušu.
And we must be free again by getting rid of our body again.
I moramo da se oslobodimo tako što ćemo se otarasiti našeg tela.
So it seems that the soul somehow is independent and chooses whatever they like to do.
I izgleda da je duša na neki način nezavisna i da bira šta hoće da radi.
In the Christian version of dualism, that would be different.
U hrišćanskoj verziji dualizma to bi bilo drugačije.
So we need to read in the New Testament, for example, in the Old Testament, what the Bible tells us about its view of dualism.
Tako da bi onda smo u Bibliji morali da pročitamo šta nam Biblija kaže o tom pogledu dualizma.
So it seems that Jesus says, and do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul.
Tako da nam Isus govori i ne bojte se onoga koji može da ubije telo, ali ne može da ubije dušu.
Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell.
Već se plašite onoga koji može da uništi i dušu i telo u paklu.
So it seems that the body can be killed by human beings, but not the soul.
I tako da izgleda da telo može biti ubijeno od strane ljudskih bića, ali ne i duša.
The soul is responsible only to God.
Duša je odgovorna samo Bogu.
What happened when Jesus died on the cross?
Šta se desilo kad je Isus umro na krstu?
He called, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit.
Rekao je, Oče, u tvoje ruke dajem svoj duh.
And then he died.
I onda je umro.
What does the Bible report about what happened afterwards?
Šta Biblija kaže šta se desilo kasnije?
It says that the resurrection happened.
Kaže da se desilo vaskrsenje.
But before that, Peter even reports about something else.
Ali pre toga Petar govori i nečem drugom.
That Jesus went in his spirit and proclaimed to the spirits in prison because they formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah. So he talked to dead people.
Tako da kaže da je kad je Isus umro otišao i proklamao duhovima u zatvoru zato što nisu slušali kada je Božje strpljenje čekalo u danima Noja.
So not only Jesus' spirit lived on after the crucifixion, but also the spirit of other dead people who were somehow conscious.
Tako da nije samo Isusov duh živeo posle smrti, već i svih ostalih koji su umrli pre njega, koji su nekako bili svesni.
And the only person who really was dead and came back afterwards was Jesus.
Jedina osoba koja je umrla i koja se vratila je Isus.
And there are good historical reasons for the resurrection of Jesus.
Ima dobri istorijski razlozi za vaskrs Isusa.
So in the Bible, it's not like the soul somehow looks for a nice body and then enters into that body.
U Bibliji nije da samo duša nađe neko lepo telo i da se nastani u telu.
But our soul is somehow incarnated into our body.
Već se naša duša nekako inkarnira u naše telo.
Our body is viewed as a tent, as a living place, as a habitation for our soul.
Naše telo je kao šator, kao mesto obitavanja za našu dušu.
Peter reports that.
Petar prijavljuje
And also Paul reports
to
that.
i apostol Pavle isto.
And this body decays.
I ovo telo propada.
But we will have a new body in the new heaven.
Ali imat ćemo novo telo u novom nebu.
But our consciousness will go on.
Ali naša svest će nastaviti.
Even when the body dies.
Čak i telo umre.
So we are completely dependent on God that He creates us as living souls in a body.
Tako da smo potpuno zavisni od toga da nas Bog stvara kao žive duše u telu.
And material is actually positive in the Bible.
A materijalno je zapravo pozitivno u Bibliji.
Apart from that, that matter decays.
Osim toga da materija umire.
So we can summarize the Christian model like this.
Tako da hrišćanski model možemo da sažmemo ovako.
God creates human beings as living souls that live in their own individual material body.
Bog stvara ljudske duše, ljudska bića kao duše koje žive u svom materijalnom telu.
And the body is not negative as with the Greeks.
I telo nije negativno kao kod Grka.
And the soul is present in the whole body somehow. It's not like the soul is cut in pieces if I lose my arm, for example.
I duša je nekako prisutna u cijelom telu i ne gubi se ako, na primjer, odsečem svoju ruku.
In a similar way as God is present in the whole of the universe, but you can never step on God.
Na isti način kako je Bog prisutan u cijelom univerzumu, ali ne možete da zgazite Boga.
After death, somehow our consciousness goes on.
Posle smrti nekako naša svest ide dalje.
But we are waiting to get a new body like Jesus got a new body at the resurrection.
Ali čekamo da dobijemo novo telo kao što je Isus dobio novo telo kad je vaskrs.
But there is a continuity between the old body and the new body. We will recognize it.
Ali postoji kontinuitet između starog i novog tela i prepoznaćemo ga.
But the source for all of life is God.
Ali izvor sveg života je Bog.
So if it's true that we live on after our physical death,
Tako da ako je tačno da živimo nakon fizičke smrti,
the most important question for us is,
najbitnije pitanje za nas je
who is God
ko je Bog
and what does He think about us?
i šta misli o nama.
What is our relationship towards God?
Koji je naš odnos prema Bogu.
And this is actually why Jesus came,
I ovo je zapravo zašto je Isus došao.
which we celebrate during Christmas.
Što stavimo tokom Božića.
God reveals Himself, He communicates with us.
Bog sebe otkriva i komunicira sa nama.
And He tells us that He has created us for eternity.
I kaže nam da nas je stvorio za večnost.
But the problem is that we as human beings have fallen away from trusting Him.
Ali problem je da smo mi kao ljudska bića pali u tome da mu verujemo.
And our relationship with Him needs to be restored.
I naš odnos sa njim mora da bude obnovljen.
A lot of people fear God,
Mnogi ljudi se plaše Boga,
or they hate God,
ili mrze Boga,
or they avoid God,
ili izbjegavaju Boga,
but they don't love Him.
ali ga ne vole.
Even though this God created them,
Iako ih ovaj Bog stvorio,
and this God gave His life for them.
i ovaj Bog je dao svoj život za njih.
It's like someone tells you, I really love you and I give my life for you,
Ovo je kako kad vam neko kaže volim vas i dajem svoj život za vas,
because I want to save you, I want to give you eternal life,
jer želim da te spasim, da ti dam večni život.
I want to solve your most basic problem,
Želim da rešim tvoj osnovni problem,
death and spiritual death,
smrt i duhovnu smrt,
the separation from God.
odvajanje od Boga.
But people say, oh, I'm not interested in your love.
Ali ljudi kažu, pa nisam zainteresovan za tvoju ljubav.
I want to take what you have given me and do my own thing.
Želim da uzem ono što si mi dao i da radim svoju stvar.
And God says, this is okay.
I Bog kaže, to je u redu.
But then you will have to live all of eternity in separation from me.
Ali onda ćeš u cijelu večnost morati da živiš odvojeno od mene.
And if you think that this world is still full of God's grace and God's life,
I ako misliš da je ovaj svijet i dalje pun Božje milosti i blagoslova i
this must
života,
really be something very sad and very dark. This must really be something very sad and very dark when you live eternity without, eternity without God.
mora da je veoma tužno kada živiš večnost odvojeno od Boga.
So I think It is worth to think about that question.
I mislim da vredi da razmislimo o tom pitanju.
Where will I spend eternity?
Gde ću provesti večnost?
Do I know God? Do I respond to His love?
Da li poznajem Boga, da li odgovaram na njegovu ljubav?
The Old Testament says this.
U Starom Zavetu kaže,
God has made everything beautiful in its time.
Bog je učinio sve prelepim u svom vremenu.
Also, He has put eternity into man's heart.
Također je stavio večnost u ljudska srca.
It's so that man cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end.
Tako da ne može da otkrije šta je Bog učinio od početka do kraja.
So there are questions that we will never be able to answer.
Tako da postoje pitanja koje nikad nećemo moći da odgovorimo.
But the existential question is,
Ali egzistencijalno pitanje je,
in which relationship are we with God?
u kakvom odnosu smo sa Bogom.
And so I want to leave you with that question.
I želim da vas ostavim sa tim pitanjem.
And I can recommend you a lot of good books on the whole topic of brain science, of philosophy of mind, and on theology.
I onda mogu da vam dam mnogo dobrih resursa o filozofiji, uma, neuronauci i teologiji.
And there are even some books at the book table, I think, in the back there, if you want to read more about certain issues.
Vjerujem da postoje knjige tamo nazad, ako želite da pročitate.
But I want to end here.
Da želim da završim ovdje.
And redeem you from your difficult task.
I da me iskupi od mog teškog posla.
So thank you for your patience and your attendance.
Tako da hvala vam na pažnji i na prisustvu.
Nažalost, David još neće biti. Pošto imamo sada vreme za pitanja, ako želite da postavite neko pitanje u vezi predavanja, u vezi tematike, slobodno možete da postavite sada.
Questions?
Yeah. And there are no stupid questions.
I nema glupih pitanja.
There's a question.
Good evening. I have a quick question. It's right at the end when you said that quote, the existential question is in which relationship are we with God.
Mogu samo da prevedem? Či ima pitanja negdje pri kraju kada je rekao da je egzistencijalno pitanje kakvom se odnosu sa Bogom?
Either you or I completely misunderstands the word existential in this question, so if you could please maybe tell me what that word means for you.
Okay.
Ako biste mogli da objasnite šta egzistencijalno znači ovdje za vas.
Existential means that it's not just a rational mind game.
Egzistencijalno znači da nije samo racionalna umna igra.
If God is personal,
Ako je Bog ličan,
and I am personal,
i ja sam ličan,
then there is some way of relationship, how we relate to each other.
postoji neki način odnosa tome kako se odnosimo jedan prema drugom.
I can trust God
Mogu da verujem Bogu
and His communication towards me,
i njegovoj komunikaciji prema meni,
for example in Jesus Christ,
na primjer u Isusu Hristu.
or I can say I don't want to have any relationship with God.
Ili mogu da kažem ne želim da imam nikakav odnos sa Bogom.
So it's similar to a relationship to another person, to my wife for example.
Tako da je slično kao odnosu sa drugom osobom, kao na primjer sa mom ženom.
She says, I love you,
Ona kaže volim te.
and I can say, I'm not interested, sorry, live your life yourself.
Mogu da kažem izvini, nisam zainteresovan, samo proživi svoj život.
But I can also say, yes, I love you too.
Ali isto mogu da kažem da, volim ja tebe.
Let's live together and let's get married.
Hajde da živimo zajedno i da se oženimo.
So that's what I mean by existential. It refers to your personal life. It is existential, it's not just a game of thoughts.
Tako da je to ono što mislim pod egzistencijalno, odnosi se na tvoj život, a nije samo nešto u mislima što ostaje.
It changes your self-conception and the way you live.
Menja tvoju koncepciju o sebi, način na koji živiš.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you take your turn for a second question.
You're fine.
To allow me. You mentioned that you did not have any mystical experience of God, but you had some experience by quote having some rational insight and certain emotions. May I ask you, and I understand you don't have to answer because it's probably a personal question, maybe what kind of insight, what kind of emotions? And my follow-up to your answer will be that, is this some kind of insight or some kind of emotions, although that could not have been granted to you by any other way except the existence of God. And to this I submit to you the challenge to think of a dream that you could have had that would not be able to recreate any of these emotions or any of these hindsights. And if it's the case, fair enough, but if it's not, would that not prove that your brain is, as you mentioned on other subjects, but not these, at least able to reproduce this? Thank you.
Znači, pitanje je bilo, pošto se spominjali da niste imali nikakve mistične iskustva sa Bogom, ali govorili ste da ste imali racionalne uvide i neke emotivne, kada nam podelite, valjda koji su to primjeri neki. I koji drugi deo pitanja? Izvini. So what is the second part of your question?
It was in one part of the spirit. To make it simple, is the idea of and he had some rational insight and certain emotions coming from God. And could you think of a dream that you could have that could recreate this? And if you can, does it not show us all the things that your brain could at least make that as an illusion?
Aha, da li ta iskustva mogu da budu predstavljene nekom san i da li onda naš mozak može da to stavi kao neku iluziju? Da li je to iluzija?
Generally, I must say, I cannot prove that anything that I experienced could not be an illusion.
Generalno govoreći, ništa što ja iskusim ne mogu da kažem da nije iluzija.
Maybe what I experience right now is just an illusion and I'm just a brain in a vat, in a tank.
Možda sve što iskusim sad ovdje je iluzija, ja sam zapravo samo mozak u posudi negdje na polici.
I can't prove that you really exist. Maybe you're just in my mind.
Ne mogu ti dokažem da vi postojite, možda se samo u mom umu.
But at the same time I would say there are many different experiences, but where I would say I experienced God.
Ali također mogu da kažem da postoje drugi momenti gdje sam iskusio Boga.
When I had certain pressures or situations and then I read in God's word, in the Bible, and I felt this word was really speaking exactly in my situation.
I onda imao sam momente sa Bogom, tako da kada sam imao neke situacije u životu, ja sam bio pod pritiskom, kada sam čitao Božju reč, imao sam osjećaj kao da govori tačno meni za moju situaciju.
Or I would understand something about the character of God that was not clear to me beforehand.
Ili bih razumeo nešto o karakteru Boga što nije bilo očito meni pre.
But of course you could say this is just my construction.
Ali naravno možeš reći to je samo moja konstrukcija.
Purely psychology.
Čista psihologija.
So in order to give you another example, some of the weirdest experiences that I have had is the following.
Tako da za drugi neke stvari mogu vam dam neki čudne primjere, kao što su.
At a conference I got to know an African missionary.
Na konferenciji sam upoznao jednog afričkog misionara.
And this David was really very attractive to me, and I thought, wow, this is a great guy, he lives a committed life.
I upoznao sam tog Davida koji mi je bio veoma privlačan i pomislio sam da vodi stvarno posvećen život.
And he worked with young people in Prague, in Czech Republic actually.
I radio sa mladim ljudima u Češkoj i u Pragu.
With a non-government organization.
Sa nevladinom organizacijom.
And they had the rule that the people after 3 years had to go home and the project would always be on stop, to be revised.
I imali su pravilo da posle 3 godine projekat mora da stane i da se vrate nazad da se ponovo obnovi projekat.
So when he was at home in Zambia, he got the impression that he should travel back and work back in the project.
Tako da kad je bio kući u Zambiji, dobije osjećaj da mora da se vrati i da nastavi rad sa projektom.
But his organization told him, we stop the project, it will not go on.
Ali ta organizacija je rekla, zaustavili smo projekat i neće se nastaviti.
So he asked me whether I would have some possibility to help him to fly to Prague.
Tako da je pitao mene da li imam neke mogućnosti da mu pomognem da leti za Prag.
I was a physics student at that time.
Tad sam bio učenik, student fizike.
And I thought, well, I trust him really. I got to know him well in these 2 weeks of that conference.
I razmišljao sam, verujem mu, dobro sam ga upoznao te 2 nedelje na konferenciji.
And so I thought, okay, let's check how much is that flight.
I rekao, dobro da proverimo koliko košta taj let.
And so I went to the travel agency and they told me it's 1,380 Deutsche Mark.
Tako da sam otišao putnu agenciju, rekli su mu da je 1380.
1,380 Deutsche Mark. German mark.
Aha, nemačkih marak.
It was before the euro in the 90s.
Pre evra.
And so I thought, wow, this is really a lot of money, but in principle I could pay that to him.
I razmišljao sam u principu je puno para, ali mogao bih da mu dam.
And so I paid the tickets and sent them to Zambia.
Tako da sam kupio karte i poslao ih u Zambiju.
And so he flew to Prague and continued his work.
Tako da je onda odleteo u Prag i nastavio sa svojim radom,
working with those young people with whom he had established relationship.
radeći sa tim mladim ljudima kojima je uspostavio odnose.
So it seemed to work fine.
Tako da izgleda da je dobro funkcionisalo,
But I had very little money.
ali ja sam imao malo para.
And so I was asked during that time
Tako da sam ja bio zamoljen tokom tog vremena,
whether I would like to lead the tutorials for theoretical solid state physics.
tako da sam bio zamoljen da vodim tutoriale za what kind of physics?
Solid state physics. Theoretical solid state physics. Solid state physics.
Za teoretsku fiziku o čvrstim materijama.
It is as complicated as it sounds.
I komplikovano koliko izvuči.
So I really thought, should I really do that?
Onda sam razmišljao da radim to.
But I said, I will learn a lot, so I will do it.
I rekao sam sebi, naučit ću puno, pa sam odlučio da uradim.
So I was prepared and went to the first lecture,
Tako da sam bio spreman i otišao na prvo predavanje
and no one was there,
i niko nije bio tamo,
apart from me and a PhD student who was in the same department as I was.
osim mene i studenta za doktorat
Was in the same department.
koji je bio u istom departmanu kao ja.
And so the professor told us, well, you are only the two, so, and you should do the tutorials, but it doesn't make sense that you make the tutorials for the PhD student.
I rekao je, profesor, vas dvojica ste samo tu i ti treba da radiš tutoriale, ali nema smisla da ti radiš tutoriale za ono koje studira za doktorant.
So he said, we skipped the tutorials,
Tako da ćemo preskočiti tutoriale,
but I still had the contract.
ali dalje sam imao ugovor
And I got 460 Deutsche Mark every month.
i dobijao sam 460 nemačkih maraka svaki mesec.
And I got this for 3 months.
I ovo sam dobio 3 meseca.
And at some point I suddenly started to realize how much money do I earn for hearing a lecture that I anyway wanted to hear.
I onda razmišljam koliko para zarađujem da čujem predavanje koje onako želim da čujem.
So I calculated and it was 1,380 Deutsche Mark.
Onda sam sve to sabrao i izračunao da je to 1380.
And I thought, this number sounds familiar to me.
I rekao, ovaj broj mi zvuči poznato.
And it seems, I felt like maybe God wanted to give me back what I had really sacrificed from my little students' money.
I onda sam osjetio da Bog želi da vratim ono malo što sam žrtvovao za svoj pare sa studentskim parama.
And so my believing friends were like, wow, this is really God's grace.
Onda su moji prijatelji rekli, ovo je stvarno Božja dobrota.
But when I told to my atheist friends,
Ali kada sam rekao svojim ateističkim prijateljima,
they said, oh, you had good luck.
kaže, imao si sreće.
It's just chance.
Samo šans.
And of course, I cannot prove anything through that.
I naravno ne mogu ništa da dokažem kroz to.
And it's not always that when I give money to other people that I receive exactly the same amount of money back.
I nije uvijek slučaj da kada mi trebaju pare, kada treba da dam pare da dobijem baš toliko koliko treba.
God is not like an ATM machine.
Bog nije bankomat.
But sometimes when it really hurts or when we really need it, He sometimes meets us in our deepest needs, in our deep needs.
Ali ponekad kad nam je potreban, on nas susreće u našim najdubljim potrebama i željama.
So for me that was really an important experience to realize that God cares for my needs.
Tako da je to meni bilo jedno bitno iskustvo koje je pokazalo da je Bogu stalo do mojih potreba.
And when I give something to Him, He will pay back.
I kada dam neke stvari njemu, on će mi vratiti.
And there are other experiences.
I postoje druge iskustva.
Very deep existential experiences. My wife, for example, was abused as a child.
Duboka egzistencijalna iskustva. Moja žena je, na primjer, zlostavljena kao dete.
And it's a long story.
To je duga priča.
But she received supernatural healing of her abuse, actually.
Ali dobila je nadprirodno izlečenje od njenog zlostavljanja.
She had a dream in which Jesus encountered her and healed her.
Imala je san u kojoj je se Isus pojavio i izlečio je.
And this was a great relief for our marriage as well.
I ovo je bilo dobro olakšanje za naš brak također.
Because it was hard to be intimate with such a wife.
Jer je bilo veoma teško biti intiman sa takvom ženom.
But all this changed afterwards.
Ali sve se ovo promenilo posle.
So I just encourage you, if you don't know whether you can experience God or not.
Tako da se ohrabrim ako ne znate da li možete da iskusite Boga,
As God is a person,
kao Boga kao osobu,
you can always talk to Him.
uvijek možete da pričate s njim.
You can say, like I started to pray,
Možete početi kao što sam se ja počeo da molim.
God, if you exist,
Bože, ako postojiš,
then please show yourself in a way that I can understand you.
onda mi se pokaži na način na koji te mogu razumeti.
You cannot lose anything by this prayer.
Ovom molitvom ništa ne možete izgubiti.
But it can change your complete life, as it did with me.
Ali može vam promeniti ceo život kao što je uradila meni.
So sorry, I think we need to close probably.
Tako da izvinjavam se, vjerojatno moramo da zatvaramo.
But thank you very much.
I hvala puno.
Hvala doktoru Finku. Ukoliko ste se zainteresovali ukoliko ste zainteresovani, imamo, mi u EUS-u imamo utorak, svakog utorka imamo od 7:30 predavanje, neko, bilo tu u ovakvoj nekoj prostoriji ili obično u Petra Dravša 42. Ako vas interesuje ove knjige koje je i dr. Fink spomenuo, imamo ih tamo nazad tu nazad i možete sobom da uzmete, besplatne su. I hvala vam što ste došli. Hvala vam.